this was my identity.
Nobody talks about how freaking hard it is to be a dentist. What most people talk about is how this affects the patient. What nobody talks about is how this affects us. Dentistry is ready for this. Now is really the time. Welcome back to Wellness and Dentistry. Today we're going to be talking about a very, very important topic, rewriting your dental identity. Who are you without the drill? Ooh, that is a hard one to think about for many of us.
Yeah.
I am Dr. Kyle Stanley. I'm a dentist, tech entrepreneur, speaker, and a researcher, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Martin Mendelson. He is a disabled dentist, coach, speaker, and author. And his first book, One Move Makes All the Difference, is actually available for pre-order now,
Yep.
wherever books are sold. Together, Martin and I have helped thousands of dental professionals pursue wellness and dentistry through our online courses, in-person courses, podcasts, and other areas. So we are excited to have you today because this topic of understanding your identity is something that I think both of us struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us put all our eggs in one basket. And then when we went through challenges, it impacted us greatly.
Oh yeah.
What are your
Very much.
thoughts on this, Martin? What are your thoughts on our identity and how it relates to our profession and how this can impact us in hard times or good times?
Yeah. So in many ways, I feel like the poster child for this topic because not only did I become disabled from clinical practice about 10 years in, but I started in dentistry at 16. So talk about identity. I mean, I was the weird kid in high school. Like I always say this from in my lectures, like Hermie from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like I want to be a dentist. Like that was me. I mean, picture this through high school and college. Now that's not totally unique, but it's a minority, I think.
For
And
sure.
and so when my hand started to really give out or give me problems, and what seemed like overnight I wasn't practicing anymore, that I learned later through therapy was actual trauma. And I didn't know what to do and I didn't know how to act. And I would not only feel uncomfortable in non-dental social situations, because think about it, the minute somebody finds out you're a dentist, what do they ask? And
Where do
we
you
do this,
practice?
yeah, we do that as dentists too. Where do you practice? So, and then you'd have to go, well, I don't, blah, 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 blah. And so it was hell, right? Because I connected my identity, my self-worth, like what it is I do with dentistry when I'm actually Martin first, not the dentist first. Right.
Yeah, and that I think is so hard for any profession that takes a long time to get there.
Yep.
So, for those of you that are listening in North America, we graduate from high school around
Hmm.
18, and then we do around 4 years of college.
Hmm.
So then we're 22, and then hopefully you get in right away, and then you do
Yeah.
another 4 years. So you're 26 by the time you start your profession.
Hmm.
Now you get out and you got to get a job, and you got to
Yep.
work multiple jobs, and maybe you have to work for corporates, and you're an associate, and then let's say you're 4 or 5 years in, you're in your early 30s, and now you're able to start your own business if that's what you want, right? So you
Right.
either buy a practice or you start a practice from scratch. And so you're in your early 30s before I feel like you have your final job.
Mhm.
And at that point, you've already been working towards that goal for 12,
Yep.
15 years. And so it's like everything you've been putting into for so long that becomes your identity. I know for me, I was pretty good in dental school by not being a dental robot, meaning
Hmm.
I was one of the only people that I felt that had a big social circle outside of dental school.
Interesting.
Most people, they were in the dental fraternity and they dated people in dental school and all their
Yeah.
friends were from dental school. Now, of course, I have great friends from dental school, but
Sure.
because I went to college in the same area where I went to dental school, I had a lot of friends. I was also doing a lot of like modeling stuff and I was going out a bunch and I was playing music. And so I
Yep.
had these other circles.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was out in those circles, I was Kyle, the dentist or the future
Yep.
dentist, you know? So when I was
Yep.
in the modeling world, it was like, oh, that's the guy. Isn't he like a dentist or something? Or, when I was playing music, it was, oh, but wait, he's like going to dental school, right? And it was like,
Yeah.
that was so unique. And I loved that. It was because I wanted to be a dentist so bad. I loved that I was having that identity as Kyle the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it got too much
Mm-hmm.
to where that was all who I was. And that
Mm-hmm.
was all I wanted to be too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that singular identity works out okay for you unless you have challenges with your profession.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, most people have challenges with their profession because dentistry is freaking hard.
Yep.
You're going to have a patient that is mad about what you did. You're going to have a patient that is late, that doesn't want to pay. You may even go through litigation. I think there was an ADA thing that showed like if you practice for 20 years in the United States, there's a 90% chance that you will get at least threatened with litigation.
Yeah.
That's either from a patient or from a team member.
Mm-hmm.
So like bad things are going to happen in your profession.
Yep.
And if you put all your eggs in one basket and you say, well, what's I spent all this time becoming
Yeah.
a dentist and I can't even do that.
So I have a good challenging question for you, and I think you even better than I am the perfect person to ask this question. But Kyle, I've spent all this time and money building my practice, and it takes a lot of work to keep my practice going. How the heck am I supposed to do anything else?
Yeah. Well, I think that comes down to values and priorities
Yeah.
because there's time to do it, but
Yeah.
you have to make it a priority in order to make that happen. We've
Mhm.
talked a lot on this podcast about one of Martin's friends who is an oral surgeon,
Yeah.
and this gentleman chooses to make his health a big priority in his life.
Hmm.
So he goes to the gym for
Yep.
90 minutes
Yep.
in the middle of the day every day.
5 days a week. No, no exceptions.
5 days a week. Now, there may be people listening that, well, he's an oral surgeon, he's rich, he can take off as much time as he wants. I mean, he has a team, he has overhead, he has all the same things that everybody else has, but he's made this a priority.
Yeah.
Now, is this a little extreme? Sure, you could say that, right? But
Well, is
this
it,
is a
or is it just
priority to
this?
him.
Well, I would, well, this would be a whole fun subject too. It's like, well, is it, or is it just like we're so societally programmed to the opposite that
You're
it seems
probably
extreme?
right. You're
Yeah.
probably right. So I would
But
challenge people to think, who were you before you were a dentist?
yeah,
Or who are you without the drill?
yeah,
Because Martin had to go through this without a choice. It
yeah,
was like the drill was ripped out of his hand when he had
yeah,
his disability.
yeah. And the truth of the matter is that if you look at my website, if you read my book, dentist is not the first thing. In fact, um, particularly on my website and some other materials, like you have to really look to see that I'm a dentist, and I'm not doing that to avoid the subject. I'm doing it because what I've realized is that also society as a whole, like you were just talking about, the minute you say dentist, they put you in this box where it's like, it's Martin the dentist guy. And I'll never forget when I first became disabled, I had a conversation with a fellow disabled dentist. And she said something that was probably one of the most important things anyone's ever said to me in my life. She said, Martin, I want you to listen to me. Her exact words. You are more than just a dentist. And don't ever let yourself say, I'm just a dentist. She said, from an educational perspective alone, you have a doctorate in the sciences. You've taken all the sciences, you've taken all the same courses as medical doctors and other types of scientists, and you had additional training in teeth. And
Mhm.
so, no, you're not just a dentist. You're so much more than that. So, if you were to meet me in an airport, this is absolutely true, and you ask me, what do I do for a living? My answer is as follows. I help people get out of their own way on stages with their teams and one-on-one, which of course makes people go, oh, that's interesting. What, tell me more about that, right?
Yeah.
Or words to that effect. But that's kind of the point. Why? Because I'm purposefully not trying to either put myself in a box or use words that make other people put me in a box, because there's more to me than the dentist, the speaker, the author, the thought. There's more to me than that. I'm multifaceted, just like everybody else is.
Yeah, what I realize with this subject is that you're one identity shift away from the
Hmm.
freedom that you've wanted in dentistry.
Yeah.
So much of the mental chains that we keep on ourselves is based on this identity shift. It's this
Hmm.
identity shift that I'm an owner, I'm an associate, I'm a periodontist, I'm a female doctor, I'm this person, I'm this person. And those identities can keep us to where we have this weight on our shoulders all the time.
Oh yeah.
And this impacted me so much with complications, with redos, with revisions is what I call them. But when a complication happens and your whole identity is that you're a dentist,
Hmm.
you're gonna take that on
Yeah.
so personally, like something's wrong with me. This crown broke. Gosh, I'm such an idiot. You know what? I went through, God, 12 years of school for this, and then I did a
Hmm.
residency, and then I've been practicing for another 15 years, and I can't make a freaking crown. What the
Yeah.
hell is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And that can spiral. And I know for me, I would worry about a failed implant for weeks on
Yeah.
end. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to be present with my kids. I would be snarky with my wife because of that failed implant. So
Mhm.
it was the identity connection
Yeah.
that was connecting me to that complication or revision
Yep.
that impacted me so much that once I changed this identity of how I thought about myself,
Hmm.
it's not like the complications didn't happen anymore.
Right.
They were still there, but they
Correct.
didn't impact me as much. It's
Correct.
exactly like how you and I talk about this living between the stimulus and the response.
Hmm.
And the more time you can live between that, the better. This is kind of the reverse in that. It's that complications affected me shorter and shorter times
Right.
as
And
I changed my profession,
so we talk
or
about
as
this.
I changed my identity, actually.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, and we talk about this a bit in our course. I talk about this a lot in my book. And a lot of this comes from the work from Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, talking about whole being or happiness. And so I want to make a really, really important point, because Kyle said this, but if you're new to this kind of discussion, you may have glossed over it, maybe, which is this. He didn't say it doesn't affect him. He said it affects him for a shorter period of time.
Exactly.
So true optimism and whole being, when it comes to emotions, emotional whole being, is allowing your emotions to flow through and flow past you. It's not negating them. And it's also not sitting there going, I shouldn't feel mad about the crown that didn't go well. Yeah, you should. Or you can, I guess would be a better way to put it.
Don't shit all over yourself.
Right. However, don't let it destroy the evening, the week, the weekend, the vacation, etc. Now, that's a journey, and that happens over time. But what you will discover is the more you truly accept these kind of things that we're talking about, and come join us at the course and do some additional reading to really make this the way you live your life, i.e., changing your identity and not making it all about each individual's crown success, quote unquote. You will find that when challenging things happen, you flow through them and flow past them more effectively and more efficiently. So, Kyle and I have talked about this just, ourselves as friends, where, oh my gosh, this really terrible thing happened. I noticed it bothered me for about 3, 4 days, but you know what? A year ago it would have been 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's,
And
it's a real thing.
I have so much gratitude for the journey that I've been on
Yep.
for shortening that time period.
Amen. Amen.
Because it, when you go through these challenges in dentistry and they affect you, it takes you away from what I would say would be like the true purposes in life
Yeah,
that you have, right?
totally.
Helping others, how you can be there for your spouse,
Hmm.
your kids, or your
Yeah.
neighbors or whoever. And so I think that's how we want to think about our identity is we're
Hmm.
not one thing.
Yes.
We are a person that has multiple facets to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we go over this in our Light Side Live course. I call this the diversified identity strategy,
Yep.
which is really like thinking about how any savvy investor would invest.
Hmm.
So if let's say your great grandmother passes away and you get $1 million from her, let's say she was a very wealthy lady, and she gives you $1 million and you go to your friend who is an investor, they hopefully won't tell you, put it all in Bitcoin, put it all in real estate, put it all
Buy
in stocks.
buy toothpicks. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Put it all in, gold.
Yeah.
No, a savvy investor diversifies
Mhm.
their strategy.
Yeah.
So they've got a little bit in Bitcoin, they've got a little bit in real estate, they got a little bit in gold, they got a little bit in
Yep.
stocks, they got some in bonds, they're holding some cash, maybe they're making some investments in startups that are maybe more volatile or something. But the whole idea of this is that if something goes down,
Yeah.
many times the other ones will go up.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so if you were a real estate investor in 2007
Hmm.
and you're going around kicking ass, right? Because all of your properties are up by
Hmm.
30% in the last year, and oh my gosh, you're flipping houses and people are buying them like crazy, and there's
Yep.
0% loans and everyone's buying. I mean, it is amazing, but you have 100% of uh, your equity in these real estate
Hmm.
plays, and then 2008 comes.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yep.
You lose everything. I mean, I
Yep.
know people that were in loans and in real estate at that time, they lost everything
I do too. Yeah.
because their entire investment portfolio was in one thing.
Hmm.
Now,
Yep.
you had people that had a property here or two, but they also had gold
Right.
or they had stocks or they had this, they had that. And the other things went up. It wasn't like their life wasn't hard, but
Mhm.
they're okay. And
Yep.
that's how we want to think about our identity too, is yes, part of your identity is that you're a dentist or you're a hygienist or you're an assistant or you're a front office
Yep.
manager or you're whatever you are that's listening to this. But you should have other parts of your identity too that you would like to be known for. Like maybe
Yep.
you love helping children, or maybe you like protecting the earth,
Hmm. Hmm.
or maybe you are an aunt or uncle and you just
Hmm.
love your nieces and nephews, right?
Yep.
Think of how you want to be perceived when you're gone.
Yeah.
And you have to come up with this strategy. It's an identity strategy. It's practice like anything else so that if one thing goes away, you
Hmm.
still have these other aspects of your life.
Yep. So let's talk about kind of how to do this from the deployment perspective. And so one of the first things you can do is actually quite fun. We do this in Lightside Live. It's also in my book. That's how impactful this exercise can be. It's called the Wheel of Life. And so this was developed in the 1960s by a psychologist. And so basically it's a wheel and from the center of the wheel, the spokes are basically scales from 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being amazing. And you basically circle the ranking in, your financial life, your friends, your personal development, intimacy, relation, you get the idea.
Yeah.
And then you kind of connect all those numbers and you see, is the wheel contiguous or is it all jacked up?
Right. Is it round or is
Yeah.
it kind of oblong?
And you see very quickly that we don't have round we don't have a round wheel. So then the
Mhm.
question becomes, okay, what areas do I want to focus on? So that's step one, which mirrors Kyle's realize concept, the first step of the Ripple framework. The next step after that, I've I've done with quite a number of my dentist clients, and we need to do this kind of in two different ways. I've found is most effective, and it has to do with basic journaling. And so basically, what you're going to do is you're going to sit down and you're going to write down what a really killer day would look like. A
What's a work day?
killer work day and
Mhm.
killer non-work day.
Okay.
because I find folks get a little bit too intermixed and intermingled in the two.
Yeah.
So you write down a killer work day. And when I say that, I mean from the time you get up.
Okay.
So the home I'm in actually came from one of these exercises because it's the type of home that I'm in. And, it has a pool. I'm in Phoenix. It gets hot here. That has a pool and a big open area because I love to entertain and that kind of thing. So you start from, okay, I get up and I'm next to my, loved one. And then I get up and I come out to my house and I make my coffee and I work out a little bit, if that's your ideal. I then go to the practice and, I love my team and everybody says good morning. And I have a day full of this kind of procedure, blah, blah, blah. And you go through the details of the work day. Then you can do the same on a day that you're not working. What's that ideal day look like? And then you look at what are the things that are driving you joy? How many times or how often are you experiencing those? What's getting in your way of experiencing those? And therefore, what are you going to do about it? Now, the magic of coaching for many is figuring out what's getting in your way. That's the whole point. But if we know where we want to go versus where we are, then that's how we build a bridge between
Yeah.
the two.
It's Stephen Covey's beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah, totally.
It-
100%.
it's how we think about dentistry, hopefully,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Let's put the tooth in that position. If the
Yep.
tooth needs to be there, then we place the implant here. If the implant needs to be there, then the bone and tissue
Yeah.
needs to be here. If the bone and
Yeah.
tissue is not there, then we can grow the bone and tissue, right? And I think in dentistry, we tend to be fairly good about this. So
Hmm.
let's take something that we do
Yeah.
well in dentistry and
Yeah.
apply it to our life.
It's facially generated treatment planning for life.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right.
That's
Yeah,
what it
that's
is.
exactly right.
Yeah.
But do you think that people don't do that because they just don't take the time to write it down, to journal, to have that self-awareness?
I
Because
think
it's
it's a
kind of
couple.
forced self-awareness.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think it's momentum. I think it's just and people don't understand how impactful this could be. I think people should all over themselves where they're like, well, it should be this way or it has to be this way. Um, and I also think, as I've said many times on this podcast, people live a life of or not and. It has to be this or that. Well, who said that? Why can't it be
Mhm.
and? Right?
You know,
So,
I've been a great example of that recently
mhm.
in that who would have ever thought that a speaker would talk on the same day, half of the day about AI in
Yeah,
dentistry and half of
yeah,
the day about mental health in dentistry, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
it's true.
turned out for me. It's so funny how that works. I would have never thought that those could be
Yeah.
in the same discussion, but many times when I'm doing full day lectures for Seattle study clubs and
Hmm.
study clubs around the world
Totally.
and dental associations, they want me to talk about those two subjects. And
Yeah.
that's a great example, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. So, really understanding what drives your joy, or at least, even if you can't answer that question, journal what a really great day feels like and what it encompasses. That will help you answer that question. Because even if you can't say that what brings me joy is camping, but when you sit down to journal and talk about a day that really you enjoy, and the first thing you think of is camping, well, there you go. So it's the your mind knows we've just put all these guardrails and restrictions on our lives and our thoughts and even the opportunities that what we could have in front of us. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm a speaker and I'm a facilitator and I'm an author and I'm about to get my insurance license. And you could be like, what the heck are you getting that for? Well, it's an economic diverse strategy. Why?
Yeah,
Because I talk about my disablement all the time.
right.
I believe so deeply in disability insurance because if it wasn't for that, I literally wouldn't be where I am today. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have given us the ability to move when we did from Baltimore to Florida to Clearwater. We would not have been able to do that. And so I'm really, really passionate about this. So if I'm passionate about it, why not bring that in in partnership with Dr. Disability Specialist is who I'm going to be working with, to allow my colleagues to protect themselves like I protected myself.
Yeah.
And so this becomes an and, not an or.
Yeah.
So I practice what I preach, literally. So,
The the last thing that I think we should talk about today
yep.
in this discussion is thinking about how you want to be known.
Yes.
And we do this exercise in Lightside Live. We
Hmm.
call it the tombstone exercise.
Yep.
But the idea is to think about when you're gone. Let's say you have passed,
Hmm.
and depending on how long you lived, maybe you have kids, maybe you have
Hmm.
grandkids,
Hmm.
you have nieces and nephews, you have neighbors, you have colleagues, you have team members.
Yep.
What do you want to be known for?
Yep.
And I know that when I was going up into my burnout and in really the deepest point of my burnout, well, maybe not the deepest point because I think at that point I realized what my true priorities were.
Hmm.
But leading up to that, I thought I wanted to be known for being like the best implantologist in the world.
Yeah.
And so I wanted my grandkids to say, oh, Pop was did the most amazing implants. He had zero bone loss on
Yeah.
all of his, and he wrote
Yeah.
all this research, and the emergence profile and the hemidesmosomal attachment that he had on his
Hmm.
super polished zirconia abutments were just the most amazing. And that is so silly to me right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
So silly.
Yeah.
Because when I think about the important people in my life, we rarely ever talk about their profession.
Oh,
We
100%.
talk about how they made us feel, how they took care of others. And I'm not talking about
Hmm.
like took care of patients. I'm saying like took
Yeah.
care of other
Yeah.
people, how they supported others.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. You've heard me talk about her before, but I don't know if you even realize this. So my mother's sister, who's no longer with us, my Aunt Gladys meant the world to me.
Did she just
And
recently pass?
no,
No?
like
Okay.
2017.
Okay.
And she that's we would spend holidays with them and we would go to their house for holidays. And my aunt was an unbelievable cook. And I got my love for cooking. I mean, my mother always cooked as well. And my mother did it in her own words because she had to. Those were her words. Whereas my aunt really loved it. And
Yeah.
you could tell because it wasn't just us that was over. It was, my cousin's friends and lots of
Mm,
my aunt and uncle's friends. And so their house became this, this epicenter, kind of like I believe your parents' home
yeah.
was for great food, and that's where
Hmm.
everybody went and so forth. Now, my aunt also worked for the New York City school system for decades, and she was involved in testing, and she impacted so many kids' lives, and she impacted my life too, because she and one of her friends recommended the undergrad institution that I ended up going to. But what do I remember my aunt for? It's not this amazing, facilitated, administrator, counselor in the New York City school system. No, no, no. It was this wonderful, cook and baker that had this wonderfully welcoming home where the love was shared through food and giving. And that's what I remember, right?
I love that. You got to tell that story at Lightside Live too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I think about the same thing. I think about my grandparents
yeah.
and even my parents who are still alive. And my dad is a great dentist,
Hmm.
but he's a better person.
Yeah.
He's like his friends don't say they call him Doc. They
Hmm.
don't say like, oh, Doc is such a great dentist. They say no, like he's a great father.
Yeah.
He's a loyal husband. He,
Yep.
is a great neighbor. He's there when people need him. And what a great legacy to be known for, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And our clinical work, it's listen, we love dentistry. I mean, Martin
Hmm.
and I love dentistry.
Totally.
We worked in dentistry for decades. We love this stuff from the lab side to the clinical side to the practice management to coaching to everything. We love the stuff. But it's what we do to make money,
Hmm.
right? And you can just because you love something and it's passionate doesn't mean, or just because it's your profession doesn't mean you can't be passionate about it and that you
Right.
can't love it. But just know that's not who you are.
Yeah,
You are much more than your profession. And I
totally.
think that a lot of people need to hear that. So I'm going to say it one more time. You are much more than your profession.
Yeah.
Even if your profession is where you spend 80% of your time. I mean, we spend
Yeah.
a lot of time in our practices and in
Hmm.
any
Hmm.
profession that you do if you work, 40 hours a week. Um, but you can't let it take over who you are
Nope.
because
Nope.
you're more than that.
Yep.
You're more than a drill, you're more than a margin, you're more than an implant. And when you're gone, I hope that that's not what you're known for. Like they can mention, oh, he was a great dentist, or she was a great dentist, or
Yeah.
whatever, or a great lab technician, or a great
Yeah.
assistant, or a great hygienist. But I hope that the people that love you go deeper into who you are as a person.
Absolutely. And I also hope you get to the place that I'm in today. Now, granted, let's be fair. I make my living now through speaking, coaching, and facilitation. But what's started to happen is that I'm known for the being like the thought leader and the guy to come to for advice. And it's happened a couple of times recently where people go, "Oh, wait, but you were a dentist, right?"
Yeah,
Like the best thing ever. And
yeah,
it's not because I'm trying to separate myself from it.
yep.
It's because that's part of who I am, not who I am. And there's a
Well,
difference.
and I've noticed this for me too, as transitioning out of clinical
Hmm.
dentistry, which I had like a 7-year transition.
Hmm.
Is that I was projecting different things too.
Yeah.
When I was in burnout, I was just the dentist. And
Hmm.
then I
Hmm.
started projecting different things. I mean,
Yeah.
a big identity with me is being a father, being
Yeah.
a huge part of my life. And I love when people come up to me at a speaking event, a dental speaking event, because that's what
Hmm.
I do. And they say, oh, I love your Instagram and the
Hmm.
stuff you talk about with mental health. But what I really love is that's cool how you take your daughter to the beach in the mornings. Like, oh,
Yeah,
that's really
exactly.
cool. Like
Yeah.
I have a daughter too, or I have a young son or something. And we connect on another level, not just dentist to dentist, but maybe it's father to father or parent to
Yep.
parent or whatever, family person to family person. And I know that one of my coaches on his podcast, the question that he asks people every time is, let's say that it's the end of your life, literally the end of your life,
Yep.
and you're in a hospital bed and you're surrounded by your loved ones. And they're all kind of whispering and talking about you and you have passed. What do
Hmm.
you hope
Hmm.
that they say?
Yeah.
And I think we need to stop and ask ourselves that.
Hmm.
Because it's just like how we talk about beginning with the end in mind. If you have that thought of what you want to be known for,
Yep.
you will then walk that path to be known for that.
Yep. Absolutely.
What final
Absolutely.
thoughts do you have, Martin?
I just appreciate anybody who's listening to this because if you are, almost by definition, you have a more open aperture that than many of us in our profession. And so I just invite you to consider that, yeah, you're more than, quote, just a dentist, which were the words that were shared to me so impactfully so many years ago. And just my final thoughts are look at your life and see what brings you joy and create your life to have more of those experiences because you can do that. It is within your power, whether you're a practice owner, an associate, whatnot. We have more autonomy than we give ourselves credit for, and you can create the life you want. You can.
Yeah, I love that. Well, if you guys liked this topic, this is such an important one, and you want to go deeper into this, please join us at Lightside Live, August 8th and 9th. That's our 12-unit, 2-day CE course.
Yep.
It's in Southern California at Glidewell Dental Lab, a really cool facility,
Mm.
and we have a great time. It's some of our favorite days of the year teaching these
Yep.
courses, and you get to hang out with us. So if you haven't met us, come hang out with us for 2 days. We'll have a really good time. And just go to wellnessanddentistry.com and click on links, and you'll see the link to that course and you can sign up.
Yep.
So we hope to see you there, and we'll see you on the next episode of Wellness in Dentistry.
Take care.